Our grade 8 class from SÁNEČ Leadership School wanted to learn how and why our elders built our own school. We went and asked our elder, Sotalia, Dr. Mary Cooper. She was the first administrator of the tribal school.
My name is Sotalia. I received that name when I was teaching at Camosun College. Trying to use my Aboriginal name more than my given name.
My name is Kalath Lumpkin. My English name is Gord Elliott. I'm from Joslip.
Okay. Kung Elliott, Tinisna, Chislas and Athia, Athleta Tia Kusaidnich, 8 lungs at Joslip, 8 lung Tia.
I grew up here in SÁNEČ. I was in that day school, that little old building. You know that one over there? I was in school there, you know. And then I went to North SÁNEČ, which is over in Sydney, right? So I had a good experience in school because I really stood up. My parents taught me to really stand up and do what I needed to do. I went to university in Los Angeles, California, because I couldn't go to UVic. I would have possibly lost my status with getting a degree.
Enfranchisement, compulsory since the Indian Act of 1876, was the legal termination of a First Nations person's Indian status for serving in the Canadian Armed Forces, gaining a university education, or leaving reserves for long periods of time. For instance, for employment. These laws were not amended until 1951 and 1985.
I went to 2 schools as a kid. The first school that I went to was Sartlip School. It was Sartlip Day School. And I think I went to Little Raven first. And then I went into grade 1. And it was the original day school that was here, so it was 40 years ago. We wanted our own school, and I was actually quite young when I first heard the term, but I think Uncle Philip Paul sort of phrased the term as Indian control of Indian education.
Our elders wanted us to have our own school so that we could encourage our youth to stick with education system. And when I say education system, I mean their type, our Satanist style of education.
I think basically the reason that they wanted our own schooling system is so that they could have better control, so that they could educate our children more effectively using our own culture as well.
Parents had to go through very traumatic stuff because of residential schools and stuff.
My God, our people have gone through so much. Oh, my goodness, they've gone through so much. My heart almost gets broken sometimes when I see what happens to them. And so you're going to be there to change a lot of that.
That's our generation is coming out of right now. So we're filling that intergenerational gap. The reason for the school is to help eliminate that being afraid of school or being that school's a bad thing. It was nice to have our own control over who our teachers were, what style of education we're teaching, and what we feel is important that we want our young people to learn as students.
We want to be taught holistically because that's how we were taught before.
Philip Paul was head of the UBC-IC and asked Marie to head up our school in 1972.
Oh, Philip Paul was the person who was really the person in contact with me through the union. So Philip was really right there when we were all starting to take over. We had no Aboriginal teachers in the school when I was moved in there. The first time we ever had an Aboriginal person was my niece Sheila. Sheila became the principal of the school over here, you know, and I became the administrator. So those were the 2 staff that were there at the very beginning. But you know what? They had this homemakers club, women's homemakers club. So they were really supportive. And they said they would never let that old school close. Way back then, it was a place of the board to say, our one goal, our only one goal, was to revive our language. That was a main purpose. And it was the only one. If you look at the mission, that's the only mission statement they have, because we lost our history, our culture, our values, our language. Uncle Dave Elliott wrote this book. Dave Elliott wrote this book. And it's the whole history of our territorial lands. He was so gifted. A lot of those elders were very, very gifted. So it was wonderful to have elders around me.
A key component in revitalizing our language was the development of the SÁNEĆ alphabet. The alphabet was developed by our late elder Dave Elliott Sr. Every single letter has its own sound. Many are pronounced in ways that do not exist in English.
Yeah, I do teach literacy for sure because, again, that was my even though that may have been a disadvantage for me speaking as a young person, definitely was my base, right? It was my base for learning. And because of the SÁNEĆ alphabet, I was able to study on my own, and I was able to work on my own, and some of my pronunciations would have been off, but I would be able to go to an elder or a speaker and ask them if I was pronouncing it properly, right? So, again, that was my base. So I feel that that base is important as in literacy. And for speaking, it just takes some time to speak. It takes some time. But it definitely was a challenge.
Some of our people in SÁNEĆ were preferring to have their children in the public schools. They felt that whatever was over there was behind everything. Oh my goodness, it's totally the opposite. But a lot of them wanted their children to go to public, had a choice. They could send them over here, or they could send them to public schools. Isn't that wonderful? They have a choice.
I think it's pretty basic. I want him to go to school with his own community, his own relatives. I want him also to have our culture and language as part of that as well. I guess that was probably a huge factor in the decision for my children to go to our school.
Residential schools were created to get rid of the SÁNEĆ culture. Laws were made on how to lose our identity, but our elders never forgot our ways and worked hard to remember our culture and to teach it to us.